today I've got a floor routine for you to follow that will work you to your core. Hi everyone and welcome to Exercise for Health. I'm Richard, and if you're looking for some gentle beginner exercises to strengthen your core and help combat low back pain, then follow along with me in this routine on the floor. If you're new to this channel, we offer tips, advice and exercises each week to help you manage your health condition with physical activity. So go ahead and tap the subscribe button below and the bell icon if you want to be notified of when we upload a new video. So we are going to do 5 exercises that will activate many of the muscles that make up your core and help provide stability for your spine. We'll do 10 slow repetitions for each exercise and we'll run through them twice. So the first time I can explain how to do the exercise correctly, and then on the second time through I can provide you with some progressions if you feel that you need to make the exercise harder. All you need is a floor space and maybe a small cushion or pillow for your head and neck if desired. If you struggle getting down on the floor, then you can do this on a bed, but ideally it needs to be a really firm surface for you to gain the biofeedback from the exercise to tell you whether you're in the right position and activating the muscles correctly. Okay, with that said, get yourself ready on the floor and let's get stuck in.
Right, the first exercise we're going to do is lying toe taps. And this exercise is a great way to get you to understand what a neutral spine position should be, and also to help you activate the transverse abdominis. And that's a muscle that acts like a corset around the spine to stabilize it, to pull everything in nice and tight. So to start off with, I want you to have your feet together and your knees together, hands out to the side of the body so your arms are pretty much straight. Rest your head back down on the floor or on your pillow. And we're going to start off by finding your neutral spine first. And basically to do that, what I want you to do is I want you to push your tailbone down into the floor like you're trying to arch this lower part of the back up. So you're trying to create a big gap in the lower part of the back. And then that's one extreme. If we then reverse the pelvis, so pull it backwards to lift the tailbone of the spine up. So I'm pressing the lower part of the back down now into the floor. That's gone to the other extreme. The neutral spine is the middle bit. So where your pelvis is kind of neutral, and that just creates this slight gap in the lower part of the back and the lumbar part of the spine. Now your focus while we're doing the exercise is to try and maintain the position of the spine, that neutral spine position, while we're doing the exercise, because we're going to be moving the leg around. So even though we're going to be moving the leg, I want you to focus on the lower part of your back. Right, so once you've got your neutral spine, I want you to lift your feet up off the floor so your knees are directly over the top of your hips. And then the movement from there is going to be lowering one leg, so we toe tap the floor and then we come back up to the start position, and then we alternate and do the same on the opposite side. So we're going to do 10 in total. So get yourself set up, find that neutral spine with the feet off the floor, that midpoint. When you've got that, let's start to lower one foot down, toe tap to the floor, and then bring it straight back up, and then go to the opposite side. So lower, toe tap, and then bring it back up. So put the focus on that lower part of the back. So you're pulling that stomach in nice and tight, a little bit like you're trying to get into a tight pair of trousers, and you're sucking your stomach in. That's 5, 6, 7, 8. Make sure you keep that lower back fixed, dead still. 9, you'll feel some tension either side as you do the movement. And 10. Good. Right, lower the feet back down. Okay, that's the first one. The next one we're going to do is we're going to go onto the knees to side, and the start position is pretty much the same as the last one, but rather than moving the knee forwards and backwards, this time the knee's going to go from side to side, but we're going to move both knees together on this one. So same start position, head flat on the floor or on your cushion, hands out to the side of the body. Get that neutral spine first in the middle, and then lift the knees up. Just relax the heels down close to your bottom so the knees are over the top of the hips. And what we'll do this time is we're going to move the knees over to one side of the body. So we're lifting the bottom of one side off the floor, so we'll roll over onto one side of the hip. The key to this one is making sure that the opposite shoulder blade stays flat on the floor. So we're not actually going to roll right the way over onto one side. You're going to keep the shoulder blades flat on the floor. So get yourself in position. Make sure you've got that neutral spine. Pull the tummy in nice and tight.
And then let's start to roll the knees across to one side. Just go as far as you comfortably can without lifting the shoulder blade up, and then return it back up to the middle, and then we immediately go across to the opposite side. So as I roll, I'm focusing on keeping the shoulder blade flat on the floor on the opposite side, and then come back up to the middle. So that's 2. Slow and controlled. Keep pulling that stomach in, so working those core muscles. 3. That's 4. Now, depending on your mobility, my spinal mobility is not very good, so I can't actually go too far across without lifting my shoulder blade up, but you might find you can go a little bit further. So just work with your range of movement, but the further you go across, the harder it does make the exercise. That's 7. 3 more. 8. Last 2. 9. 1 more. And 10. Good. Relax that back down. So you should have felt that working the muscles around the obliques. That's those waist muscles as you move the knees from side to side. Right, we're now going to go on to a double crunch. So for this one, we're starting to work the abdominal muscles, which are the muscles that run down the front of the stomach. We're going to do, it's called a double crunch because it basically crunches in both directions. So we're going to do a combination of a pelvic tilt, which is basically pressing the lower part of the back down into the floor and start to lift the tailbone of the spine up, and then return back. So we're going to combine that movement with the movement of a normal crunch, which is where we're lifting the shoulders up off the floor and then lower back down. So the idea is we're trying to create this saucer shape of your spine. So start off with your feet flat on the floor, about shoulder width wide this time, and knees bent. I want you to start off with your hands on the top of the thighs with your arms straight, because the idea is for the crunch part, we're going to try and slide the hands up towards the knees as you lift the shoulders off the floor. To stop you from feeling too much of a strain in your neck, I want you to think about like you're holding an imaginary orange underneath your chin. So you're going to tuck that chin in nice and tight, hold that imaginary orange there, and you've got to try and fix that while you're doing the crunch movement, because this doesn't actually work your abdominals, funnily enough, because the head's not actually attached to the abdominals. So we don't want to do any of this movement, we want to try and keep that fixed, and that'll stop you from straining your neck. So feet shoulder width wide, hands on your legs, starting off with a bit of a neutral spine position, and then from there we're going to press that lower back down into the floor, lift the tailbone up, slide the hands up towards the knees if you can, and then return back down to the start. That's 1. Breathe out as you come up, lift that tailbone up, breathe in as you lower back down. That's 2. Keep that imaginary orange underneath your chin as you come up. That's 3. Imagine like you're trying to get the bottom of your rib cage down towards that pelvic bone. That's 4. So we're trying to narrow that gap. That's where we're isolating the muscles then, down the front of the stomach. That's 5. Breathe out as you come up. See if you can get all the air out of your lungs at the top. 6. Slowly down. 7. Last 3. Really press that lower back down into the floor. Lift up the tailbone. Lift those shoulder blades up off the floor. That's 8. 2 more. 9. Last 1. And 10. Good. Okay. Right, we're going to go on to the clamshell next, and this one's working the glute muscles, the muscles around the buttocks. So we need to roll over onto one side for this one. And you're not going to have your body in a straight line, so you do need to bend the hip a little bit, but don't bring your knees right up. So have the knees down on a slight angle. This support arm's just on the floor wherever you feel more comfortable with it, and I'm going to place my top arm, I'm going to place the hand down on the floor just for a little bit of support so I can isolate this muscle around the side of the hip and the glutes around the back. You do need to lean slightly forward, so the idea is then that will help isolate those muscles, and what we don't want to do is we don't want to start rocking the body as you do the movement. So this clamshell movement is to start off with the knees together and the heels touching, and the idea is that we're lifting the knee up away from the opposite knee to isolate the muscles around the side of the hip and into the glutes. Now before you start the movement though, I want you to tuck the tailbone underneath you to try and flatten out the back, and think about squeezing your buttocks together before you actually start. So get yourself set up, squeeze your buttocks, tuck your tailbone underneath you, top hand on the floor, so leaning slightly into it, and then from there we're going to lift that knee up, keeping the heels together, and then lower it back down to the start. So that's 1. Squeeze it up, keep squeezing those buttocks together. That's 2. 3. Again, depending on your mobility in the hip will depend on how far your knee comes up. It's 4. You should be starting to feel that in the side of the hip. 5, and into those buttocks a little bit. 6. Squeeze it up. 7. 8. Good. 2 more, so you should be feeling it here now. 9. Last one. And 10. Good. Right, we need to switch over to do the same on the other side. So I'm going to spin myself around so I'm still facing you. Okay, so adopt that same position as we did before. Slight angle in the hip. Top hand just resting on the floor for support. Tuck your tailbone of your spine underneath you. Squeeze your buttocks together. And then from there, we're lifting that knee up, away from the other one, keeping the heels together so you can feel that around the side of the bottom and lower back down. So that's 1, 2, 3. Good. 4. So a lot of these exercises are all about getting that biofeedback so you can really feel the muscle working. If you get the technique right, you don't have to do that many. So even if you get to 5 and you're struggling, that's 5. You can stop and have a rest if you need to. 6, 7. Slow and controlled so you can isolate that muscle. 8. 2 more. Squeeze it up. Really feel that side of the buttock working. Last one. And 10. Good. Okay, so that's the clamshell done for the glutes. We're going to do last one is going to be for the erector spinae muscles in the lower part of the back. So this is called a back extension. So we're going to line your front for this one. And initially, I want you to be face down on the floor with the palms facing down, so the elbows are just next to you, and just rest your chest down on the floor. And your arm, you're not actually going to use your arms to push yourself up, so we're not like doing a cobra type movement. All we're going to do is just keep them there for support. So you're actually utilizing the muscles in the lower part of the back to lift the chest up away from the floor before you lower down. Just to get you set up correctly before you start, once you're led down on your front, I want you to think about pushing your toes and your feet and your heels away from the body. So you're trying to force the legs away from the body that way. And then rest the chest down on the floor. And then the movement, we're all working from here. So I'm going to start to use those lower back muscles to lift the chest up away from the floor. So I'm not pushing my arms. Hold that at the top for a split second before I lower back down. So you're going to do it with me. Keep looking straight down at the floor. So lift. You might find it easier to breathe in as you come up and then breathe out as you lower back down. That's 1. 2. Remember, you're not pushing through your arms, they're just there for support. 3. 4. Good. Slow and steady. Try not to come up too high. 5. Because the further you go up, you'll get to a point where you can't extend the spine anymore. 6. And you'll just end up with hip extension. So you'll start to activate the muscles around the bottom a bit more. 7. But you should be feeling that in the lower part of the back by now. 8. Last 2. 9. Good. 1 more. And 10. Good. And relax. Brilliant. Okay, so that's the first round done. What we're going to do now is we're going to move on to a second round where each exercise I'm going to show you a slight progression to make the exercise a little bit harder if you found that one a little bit easy. But I'll still put on a little circle down here somewhere. I'll have the original version, the original variation on there in case you still want to follow that one for the second circuit through. So let's go on to the second round. Right then, we're back into the second round. So we're going to go straight back into the lying toe taps, but this time as a progression, we're going to do lying heel taps. So the slight difference is this time, same sort of position with the feet together, knees together, hands to the side, resting the head down, neutral spine position first, pull the tummy in nice and tight, lift the knees up off the floor. But rather than doing the single leg toe tap like this, what we're going to do now is we're going to extend the knees just a little bit further, and then from there we're going to drop the heel down to the floor, so doing a heel tap.
Now that means that the leg's going a little bit further forward, so that the hips open up a little bit more, which puts more pressure on these psoas muscles, which then means that it's going to pull a little bit more on the lower part of the back. So the core muscles are going to have to engage that much more to stabilize your spine. So if you're happy to do this one, do this one. If not, do the original version, but we're going to do it for a set of 10. So get yourself set up, pull the tummy nice and tight, off we go. Lower in the heel or the toes down, tap it on the floor, and then come back up to the start. That's 1, 2, you can feel the difference, this one being a little bit harder. 3, so you feel that in the lower part of the abdomen. 4, which is that transverse abdominis working to stabilize your spine. 5, remember the focus is on that lower part of the back, so don't let the lower part of the back move. 6, while your legs are moving. 7, 8, 9, one more, and 10. Good. Right, let's go on to the knees to side. So the progression for this one is, before we were in this position, but similar to what we did on the first one, we're just going to straighten the legs that little bit more, which basically means then you've got a little bit more weight further down as you roll over to one side, so make it that little bit harder. So get yourself set up. Again, you can just do the original variation if you prefer. Again, pull the tummy in nice and tight, make sure your spine's neutral, and then just rock over, lifting the one hip up, buttock comes up. Remember the shoulder blade stays flat on the floor, and then come back up to the start position. Again, if you can go further than I can, do that. Just go as far as you comfortably can without letting the knees drop completely, but just make sure that the knees, the shoulder blades are not actually lifting up off the floor. That's 3, 4, so I can feel that around the obliques, those waist muscles working. As you drop it to the right, you feel the muscles around the left side work. 5, 6, 7, 8, last 2, 9, one more, and 10. Good. Rest of those feet back down. Okay, so now we're going into the double crunch. So feet flat on the floor, knees shoulder width wide. And then this time the difference is going to be the hand position. So before we had our arms straight here as we were sliding the hands up towards the knees, but this time to make it harder, this is the pivot point. I'm going to start to bring more of my weight this way, which means bringing my arms up, this time with the fingers on the side of the temples, elbows out to the side as I do the crunch movement, which is going to make it harder. Okay, so that's going to be that. If you want to make the other end harder for the pelvic tilt, before we have both feet flat on the floor, what you can do is you can actually have a foot lifted off the floor as you do the pelvic tilt, which makes it harder. So we can do them 5 on one side, and then we'll switch over and do 5 on the other side. Or if you really want to go for it, if your core is particularly strong, you can actually do it with both feet off the floor. So you do a pelvic tilt that way, which is quite difficult. What you've got to be careful of is that you don't end up just rocking and working through the hip. So remember, it's a pelvic tilt, it's not hip flexion and extension movement. So if you are going to do it with both feet off the floor, just make sure that you're not starting to rock the body, moving the actual hip joint itself. So choose your position. Again, you can do the easier variation if you wanted to, like we did in round 1. So from there, I'm going to press that lower back down to the floor, lift the tailbone up, crunch at the top, so I'm lifting the shoulder blades up, and then slowly back down. That's 1. So I'm doing it with just one leg up off the floor. So then we're going to do 5 on this side and 5 on the other side. That's 2. If you're doing it with both feet on the floor, just do 10 straight. 3. Make sure if you've got your hands in the same position as I have, it's just the fingertips on the side of the temple. You're not pulling on your head. Remember that imaginary orange underneath your chin. Right, that's 5. Let's switch the feet over if you're doing single leg. So other foot up off the floor. So lift that pelvis. Lift the tailbone up as you crunch up. 1, 2, 3, last 2, 4, one more, and 5. Good. Right, drop the feet back down. Okay, we're going into the clamshell. So this is one where we're rolling onto one side.
Remember, we're going to lean forwards just slightly, hand on the floor. So the progression for this one, because we're working the glutes, we just extend it a little bit. So rather than just doing this clamshell movement with the heels together, what we do is we lift the knee up, and then from there we're going to then do an abduction of the hip, which is raising up a little bit more, isolating those muscles around the side of the hip that little bit more. So just work a little bit more into the side of the hip. So get yourself in position, top hand on the floor for some support, tuck your tailbones, squeeze your buttocks together, and then from there we're going to lift the knee up, and if you want to go into the extension, add in that abduction, down to the start position. That's 1, 2, 3, just be careful you're not arching that lower part of the back, 4, 5, 6, also be careful you're not starting to roll backwards, so just isolating that hip, 7, 8, 9, side of your hip and your bottom should be on fire by now, that's 10, good. Okay, let's switch over to do the same on the opposite side. So same position, top hand on the floor, squeeze that buttocks together and tuck the tailbone underneath you, and then from there raising that knee away, and then if you want the extension bit, abduction of the hip, return back down. That's 1, 2, so be careful you're not starting to roll onto the back, 3, 4, a lot to think about with this exercise, try and get the technique right, 5, 6, so you should be feeling that now, side of the hip, round the bottom, 7, 8, 2 more, 9, last one, and 10, good. Okay, let's move on to the last exercise then, which was the back extension, where we're lying on your front. So the progression for this one is, instead of having the hands flat on the floor by the side of the body, this time we're going to take the arms behind you this way. So we don't have the support this time as you come up. You're just going to have the hands to the side. So it means it's all the pressure now is going through the lower part of the back without any support with your hands. So adopt that same position, straighten the legs. So trying to push those feet away from the body first of all. Again, think of that imaginary orange underneath your chin. So you're just going to tuck your chin in nice and tight to keep hold of it. And then from there, shoulder blades down and back, and then let's lift up from there. So come up as high as you can, slowly lower back down. So that's 1. Isolate that lower back, so we're not putting too much pressure through the glutes. These should be relatively relaxed. 2, 3, 4, good. Really think about coming up, unwinding, extending that spine. That's 5. You might even feel that all the way up as high as even the shoulder blades. 6, that's where your rectus spinae muscles go up. 7, depends on your mobility. So just go as high as you can without putting too much pressure into the hip into the floor. 8, last 2. 9, one more. And 10. Good work. Brilliant. There you go. So you've completed the second circuit. Well done. Do you now feel you've been worked to your core? Well done. And you can follow this routine twice a week if you want to make real progress with managing your back pain, or just to provide a stronger foundation for the rest of your body to move from. If you enjoyed the workout today, please give it a like by clicking the thumbs up button below, and share this video with friends to help this channel grow so more people can benefit from it. Thank you so much for watching, and remember to stay active, keep moving, and I'll see you next week. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video today, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click here to subscribe to this channel, or click here to watch a recent video. See you soon.